Welcome to the Fluids Lab. This safety exercise is provided to make you aware of the potential hazards you can encounter within this lab. It will also touch on a few specific lab experiments you will be doing in ME319 fluid mechanics. You will be given a short quiz that you will need to print out at the end and return it to your instructor before you will be permitted to participate in the lab. Failure to complete this training or failure to inform your instructor that you completed it by the given date will result in your dismissal from the lab for the semester. Let's start with a general overview. You will be working with various pieces of equipment. Be aware of what is going on at all times. Be sure you understand how to use the equipment and that you have permission from your instructor before starting experiments. Please leave the labs as clean as you found them. Food and drink are not permitted in this lab. This is common to most IPFW labs. The lab technician's office is located in ET 347. One term that you will hear in multiple places here at IPFW, as well as throughout your career, is PPE, or personal protective equipment. Safety glasses will be required for all lab experiments. Closed-toed shoes will also be required, and no sandals will be allowed in the lab. Generally, shorts are allowed in this lab. Spill cleanup. As part of this lab, you'll be using multiple different fluids. While none of them are dangerous, you need to be aware of what they are and how to clean them up. You also need to be aware of where the materials are to clean up in the event of a spill. There is a cabinet located in the corner of the room next to the Vickers hydraulic bench and also next to the main electrical panel. The cabinet is labeled 343-3. It will also have a sign on it that says "Notice Spill Kit" inside. The contents of this cabinet includes dustpans, brushes, a bucket, disposable gloves, spill pads, trash bags, etc. These are the items you'll use to clean up a major spill. If it's small enough, there are paper towels that are located just above the mop sink. Other safety concerns. As with other labs, horseplay will not be tolerated. We are adults and we need to conduct ourselves as such. There are liquids that will be used in the lab. It is a fluids lab. Please make sure that any spills are cleaned up. There is a mop and bucket in the room for all water spills. There is a paper towel dispenser above the mop sink, and there is also a cabinet with supplies for cleaning up larger spills. One item to note is manometer fluid. It is a light oil. It is not dangerous. It is soap and water cleanup. However, the red dye in the fluid can stain clothing. Be aware and dress appropriately when using this equipment. We also have various wind devices that you'll be using. All devices that generate a considerable amount of airflow will have a tendency to kick up dust and debris. Please wear safety glasses at all times. One of two experiments that I would like to highlight in this safety video is the Armfield hydraulic bench. This bench is essentially a large water tank. You will fill this with water, and there is a pump. There is a nozzle that feeds the experiments that you will be using. You can see in the pictures to the left here on your slide. You must always have an experiment fitted to this nozzle before turning the machine on. It has a very powerful jet of water that if the valve is open all the way, that water jet could go as high as hit the ceiling, and not only will it get the class wet, but you could also potentially hit one of the lights with water, which is not a good thing. So please be aware that you may have an experiment hooked before turning this machine on. The second piece of equipment I would like to highlight is the TQ airflow bench. You'll be doing multiple experiments with this bench, and they will use a multi-tube manometer. The manometer that is on it has a red gauge fluid that I spoke about earlier. It is a light oil. It will clean up with soap and water. However, the dye in there may stain clothing. One thing to be aware is before turning the fan on, you want to make sure the main iris is closed. If the main airflow gate is open too far and that fan is turned on, it has a potential to push the fluid right out of the top of the manometer and cause a spill. Equipment handling. If a piece of equipment breaks during the lab, notify the lab technician or your instructor immediately. Do not attempt to fix the equipment by yourself. If the equipment is broken before use, notify the lab technician to get alternative equipment. At the end of the lab period, all your equipment should be cleaned up and either left on the workbench in an orderly fashion or returned to its place within the lab. Emergency procedures. In case of a fire, stop what you're doing immediately, exit through the main lab entrance, pull the fire alarm pull station on your way out of the door, and do not re-enter the building. In the case of a medical emergency, dial 911. For other emergencies, campus police can be reached by calling one of the red emergency phones or by calling 260-481-6827. You can also pick up any campus phone and dial 16827 and also receive the police. First aid must be administered by the campus police. All fluids you'll come in contact with the lab have an MSDS sheet and are available in the Right to Know centers just above the mop sink. This concludes our safety training. Thank you and be safe.